Hello, Accounting Superstars. This is Professor Don Bush from the Accounting Superstar channel. Glad you're here. What a beautiful day in Colorado. Man, it's Saturday, July 3rd, and it is wonderful out. Just beautiful, clear skies. I'm looking out the window here. Sunny days, but we've been having thunderstorms at night, which are kind of cool around here. Big lightning storms. So I hope you're doing well. And welcome to the channel. Hey, check out my webpage, accountingsuperstars.com. It's got all my videos by topic, so they're easier to find. They're organized a little bit. So check it out. All right, so let's get started. Well, today's lesson is about labor and materials variances. And this is a very typical kind of problem that you might see out of your textbook that you might get assigned for homework or on a test problem, something like that. And it's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. But one of the keys is you have to make sure you're comparing apples with apples. That's kind of the key here. I'll show you what I mean. So we've got Sunset Sailboat Company, and they build these beautiful, absolutely stunning hatchway doors here on sailboats, along with building sailboats too. But they're made out of teak and they're handmade. They are absolutely wonderful, custom made. And so here's what's happening here, folks, is that we've got some information right here. And wherever you see the word standard, it means budget. That's all it means. Same thing, standard, budget. Some books will use the word budget. Some books will use the word standard. I kind of use the terms interchangeably. They mean the same thing. So standard wage per hour, well, they pay the guys and gals who build these hatchways, companionways, $26 an hour. That's what they budget. That is what they were planning on doing. Now, what actually happens might be a little different, but this is what their plan is. Standard labor hours per hatch, 20 hours. So it takes 20 hours of work to build one of these beautiful hatchways. Standard board feet of teak, 45 board feet. Now, what's a board foot? A board foot is some wood that is 12 inches by 12 inches by 1 inch thick. So if you do a little math, 12 times 12 times 1, you get 144. So that's 144 cubic inches. So a board foot can be any dimension whatsoever. It can be 2 inches thick, 6 inches wide by 12 inches, whatever. Just so it adds up, just so it multiplies out to 144 cubic inches. So it can be any dimension. But to make it easy, I always say 12 inches by 12 inches by 1 inch thick, because that's an easy way to look at it. I guess you could say, let's see here, 1 inch by 1 inch by 144 inches. That'd be a board foot too. So anyways, so let's see here. The actual total board feet, standard board feet of teak. Here we are, 45 board feet. All right, and about probably 10% of it's wasted. The standard price per board foot of teak is $22 a board foot. Teak wood is expensive, and the Sunset Sailboat Company probably gets their teak wood at wholesale prices, which is a little cheaper. So if you were to go to a woodworking store to buy teak, it might be more than $22 a board foot. Sometimes I've seen it at about $40 a board foot. It is really expensive, but it's good wood. It's resistant to sunlight, insects, and mold, and it's great for boats. That's why they use it on boats. They also make teak wood decks too, I guess if you have a lot of money. So going on here, now here's what happened during 1 week, all right? So here's what actually happened. So the actual price per board foot of teak was $23.25. So they were I guess they ended up paying a little bit more for the teak wood than they expected. And that happens because the price of wood, and teak wood and any kind of wood, fluctuates. And lately, for the last 6 months, lumber prices have been really, really super high, but they're coming down now. So lumber prices fluctuate just like the price of oil or gas or gold or silver, whatever. The actual total board feet consumed during the past week was 250 board feet. So they built several of these hatches, and they used up 250 board feet of wood. And what our job today is to figure out, well, is this good or bad? Number of hatches produced during the week? Well, they built 6.5 hatches this week. 6.5. So it didn't. They didn't end on a round number, but 6.5. The actual wages per hour, $25.50. That's a little bit less than what they had planned. Actual total hours worked, work performed during the week, 125 hours. So we're going to find out. Well, is this good or bad? Were the people fast enough, or were they kind of slow, or what was going on? So let's answer one question right here. Let's find out, well, how much does it cost to build one hatch, the materials and labor? And for now, we're ignoring overhead, all right? So labor, so the standard wage per hour, well, that is $26, and I'm going to highlight it. Here we go, give it a nice orange color because it stands out. So the standard wage per hour is $26 per hour, and the standard hours to build a hatch is 20 hours. Right there, we get the information right there. So how much labor to build a hatch? Well, $26 an hour times 20 hours. It should cost about $520 to build one of those hatches for labor. So let's figure out the materials. So materials, the standard price per board foot of teak wood. So here it is. It's the standard price is $22 a board foot. That's what they were expecting to pay. And the standard board feet of teak that they need 45 board feet. Here we go. So 45. And do the math, and you get $990. So the teak wood's expensive. I'm going to highlight this just to know that we use the number. So the grand total labor and materials to build a hatchway here, or a companionway, is $1,510. So they're expensive. And that's not counting the overhead or the markup for profit too. So expensive things, but they're beautiful. We'll take another look at them. There they are, right there. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, so coming down here, so let's figure out if things went well. Now, I do have another video that I made yesterday on variances, and I go through it real slowly. And if you go to accountingsuperstars.com, you can find the video. It's under the topic variances. All right, so I'll go through this one a little bit faster, okay? And if I go too fast, you can either rewind and watch this video again, or go to accountingsuperstars.com and watch the basic video on variances. But here's how it works, is that we read from left to right. So I'm going to cruise more or less from left to right, okay? So left to right, actual price. Now, the way I remember that actual price goes here is because A comes before B, okay? A comes before B. Pretty brilliant there. And so you'll see what I'm talking about here. So we'll have actual quantity here. So now another way that I remember this too is that P for price comes before Q for quantity. You know, PQ if you know your alphabet. So actual price, actual quantity. And you want to set it up in this order. You don't want to reverse these or you'll get wrong answers. Now I'm going to go clear over here to the right-hand side. So over here on the right-hand side, we have budget price or standard price. So the way I remember it is A comes before B. All right. And of course, you remember P comes before Q. So we're going to have budget quantity. Okay. So if you can remember that, you can do this. And you might say, wait a minute, the two in the middle aren't filled in. Well, they're really easy. So just remember A comes before B and P comes before Q. All right. And it works out over here too. So how do we get the middle? Well, the inside goes in. Inside in. So just bring the inside in. Actual quantity, actual quantity. And over here, bring the inside in. All right. So if you can do that, you can do this. It's super, super easy. All right. I'm going to split the screen here so we can see what's going on up above. So view, split. So here we go. So let's figure out the actual price here. Now, what we're doing here is we're figuring out the materials variance, So we're focusing on the teak wood. So the actual price for the teak wood, let's go up here and find out what it is from the information. So the actual price per board foot of teak was $23.25. So all we're going to do is take that number and drop it into place right here. There we go. And the actual quantity was 250 board feet. 250 board feet. All right. So, and if we want, what we can do is we can do a little math here, multiply and get this number down here. In other words, 2325 times 250 is 5,812.50 cents. So this is the actual amount of money spent for the teak wood, and it's made up of 23.25 per board foot, and we used up 250 board feet. So let's go over here to the budget. All right, let's go over here to the budget side. So the budget price, what was the budget price? And if you recall, the word budget and standard mean the exact same thing. So the standard board feet of teak is, or I'm sorry, the board standard price. Let's get the standard price here. Standard price per board foot of teak is $22 a board foot. 12 inches by 12 inches by 1 inch thick. Okay. And the budget quantity, it was 45. Now here we got to be careful. You see, if I just put in 45 here, it's not going to work. And you might say, why is it not going to work? Well, because we've got 250 board feet over here, and putting just 45 over here wouldn't make much sense. So here's what we have to do, and this is the trick, and this is where most students drop the football, okay? They fumble the football on the 2-yard line here. Because if we can get this number right, the rest of it's a piece of cake, all right? So the budgeted quantity, now it takes 45 board feet to make one hatch, but we didn't make one hatch. How many hatches did we make? We made 6.5 hatches, right? So we have to go 6.5 times 45. And if we do that, we get 293. So here's a way to double check, is that 250 and 293 are relatively in the same ballpark. I mean, they're not exactly the same, but they're in the same ballpark. But if we had 250 and just 45, that's not in the ballpark, all right? So that's a way to double check. Are they reasonably close? And you might say, how do you know if it's reasonably close? Yeah, it's just, you have to feel it. For instance, I'll give you another example. And this is kind of a stupid example, but suppose the actual quantity was 250 feet and we had over here 50,000 feet or something. Well, that's not right. But I've seen students do that, all right? It wouldn't be the first time. So you want to just say, is it reasonably in the ballpark here? So that's how I double check. All right. So if we go 22 times 293, we get 6,435 right here. And I can see there we go, something there. All right. So, all right. So what we can do is we can see how things are going at this point in time. So over here on the left-hand side is actual. Over here on the right-hand side is what was budgeted, and they budgeted $6,435 for this teak wood, and they only spent $5,812.50. So they're under budget. Right? They're under budget. So what we can do is we can say, oh, okay, well, the total variance, the grand total variance, the difference between what they planned on spending and what they actually spent is $622.50. So lastly, and this is very important to do, this is part of it also, you don't want to forget this part, is that, well, is this a good variance or is it a bad variance? And we call it, is it favorable or unfavorable? Well, usually if you're come out under budget, that's looked upon as pretty favorable, right? It's pretty nice. Although it's not always the case, but for now, let's put down favorable, that we're under budget. So we might ask, well, why were we under budget? What happened here? What happened here? Well, what we can see here, for one thing, like the price, is we paid a little bit less, right? We paid a little bit less. Okay, so let's figure out the price variance. So right here is going to be the price variance. And it's going to end up being in this number. So how do we figure out the price variance? Well, what we do is we need to figure out this middle part here of this variance. I like to think of this as an upside down E. Well, not upside down, but an E that fell on its back. How's that? So the letter E that fell on its back. So let's figure out the middle part of the E that fell on its back. So as we said, or as I said, the actual quantity inside moves in. So let's take that 250 and move it inside. All right. And let's take this $22 and move it inside. All right. Take the 22, move it inside. So 250 times 22 is 5,500. And so this 5,500, you might be saying, well, what's 5,500? Well, what it is, it's the actual quantity of wood that was used times the budget price. But what we're going to do is we're going to use it to figure out the price variance and the quantity variance. Now, how did I know that it was the price variance and the quantity variance? Well, the way I knew is that P comes before Q. You have to know your alphabet. P comes before Q. Just like up here, P comes before Q, which makes the figuring out these variances really pretty easy, setting it up. So let's figure out the price variance. All right, so the price variance works like this. Now, over here on the left-hand side in the blue, these are actual numbers. But in the middle here, we've got a budget number, right? Actual numbers, and over here we've got a budget number. So just consider it like this, that the left-hand side is actual. The middle part here for now is budget, okay? It's going to be budget. So let's see here. So if 5,500 was budgeted and they spent 5,812, well, they're over budget, aren't they? They're over budget. So that's going to be unfavorable. They're over budget. Right? So they're over budget. So, and it makes sense. It makes sense too. They budgeted $22 a board foot, but they ended up paying $23.25 a board foot. And you know what? It added up. And because of that price difference, they had to spend an extra $312.50. All right. So that's how that works out. So they're over budget with that. But you know what? That's not the fault of the workers at all. So you got to remember that. That's not the workers' fault that the price went up. The workers have no control over that whatsoever. So you don't want to yell at the workers for that. It's not, you can yell at the workers if they shopped at the wrong place and bought the teak wood at a place they shouldn't have purchased it at. But the value of teak wood goes up and down all the time. So quantity variance. So let's compare these two numbers. Now on the right, we have the budget. And in the middle here, we've got an actual number, right? An actual number. Over here on the right, budget. In the middle, we have an actual number. So for now, consider the right budget and the middle actual, all right? Budget, actual. So they budgeted $6,435. That's what they budgeted. And they actually spent $5,500. So the quantity variance is $935. And since they're under budget, we'll call that favorable. Favorable. There you go. All right. So we've got our price variance and our quantity variance and our total variance, and we can double check our work, and it's really easy to double check our work. So here's what it is our quantity variance is favorable by $935, and the price variance is unfavorable by $312.50. Well, the difference between the favorable and the unfavorable leaves us with $622.50 favorable. And how did I know that it's favorable? Well, one way is that here's the budget, here's the actual, and budget is greater than actual. Another way is that with the quantity variance, that's a bigger number than the price variance. And so we're left with a favorable variance. It's sort of like debits and credits, how they net out, sort of like that. All right, so there is the materials variance. So let's do the labor variance. And the labor variance here works the exact same way, thank goodness. And so let's put in our headings here. Got to know your alphabet. Actual price, actual quantity. So A comes before B. And P comes before quantity, okay, or P comes before Q. So actual price, actual quantity, and you got to set it up this way. If you get them reversed, it won't work. And over here is going to be budgeted price and budget quantity. P comes before Q. We read from left to right. And the inside goes in. Inside goes in. There we go. Inside goes in. There we go. Well, that's the hardest part of it right there. That was all there is to it. And you know what? Since we're labeling this thing, the difference between actual and budget, that's the difference between actual and budget, that is called the total variance. All right, the total variance. And remember, P comes before Q, so this one's going to be the price variance. This is going to be the quantity variance. P comes before Q. It works just like the headings up here. All right, so let's figure out the actual price for labor. Let's see where it is. The actual price for, there it is. Actual wages per hour, $25.50. Drop it into place. There you go. And the actual quantity of work, well, the total hours worked was 125 hours. So if you do a little math, 25.50 times 125, you get 3,187.50 cents. Okay, easy math. Let's go over here to the budget. All right, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these just so we know we use the numbers. And we use the actual board feet of Teakwood too in the other example. All right, so let's see what the budget has to say. All right, here we are. So the standard wage per hour is 26. So that's the budget price. That's what we were expecting to pay people. The budgeted quantity is 20. Now, if I just put 20 in here, it's not going to work. If I just put 20 in here, it's not going to work because we're comparing 125, the actual quantity, with just 20. It's like we're not comparing apples with apples, right? We got an apple and an orange here. Now, we can compare oranges and oranges, but, you know, we're trying to do apples and apples, all right? So, so you just got to double check and make sure, well, are we in the same ballpark? Well, 125 and 20, that's kind of different. So what's wrong here? Remember this $22 per board foot, the 20 hours per hatch, that is just for one hatch. That's just one. But how many hatches did they build? They built 6.5. Here, I'll highlight it in a different color here. There we go. They built 6.5. So 20 times 6.5 is 130. So 125 and 130, that's in the ballpark, right? That's how I double check just to see if I'm in the right, if I'm doing it right. And again, to give you a crazy example, if we have 125 over here on the left, and the budget quantity here is like 3,000 or something, that's not in the same ballpark. You want them close, and they're probably not going to be exactly the same. Usually not. All right, so $26 an hour times 130 hours is $3,380. All right, so we can figure out the total variance at this point. So they budgeted $3,380. It actually cost them $3,187.50. So they're under budget. They're under budget. Actual was less than budget. So they're under budget. So the difference, $192.50, that's the total variance. So the managers are saying, cool, we're under budget. Well, why are we under budget though? What happened? So let's figure out the middle part. So actual quantity moves inside. The inside moves in, right? Inside moves in. And the inside moves in. All right, so multiply these two together. 125 times $26 per hour, get 3,250. And that's the actual quantity times the budget price. There we go. So we can figure out the price variance now. So all we do is we find the difference between these two numbers. So over here on the left in blue is actual. Here in the middle, we've got a budget component. So this is going to be considered budget. So actual, budget. So the budget was $3,250. The actual was $3,187.50. We're a little under budget. So this is going to be a variance of $62.50, and it's going to be favorable. F means favorable. So if you get an F on this test, F means favorable. All right. Quantity variance. Quantity variance. So over here on the right, it's budget. Over here in the middle, we've got an actual component. So budget, actual. So the budget was $3,380, and we're a little under budget. We're a little under budget. So the quantity variance is going to be 130, and it will be favorable too. There we go. So the total variance here, and I didn't write that down, which is very important, is favorable. All right, folks. So with this labor budget, not only did they pay the workers a little less, but the workers were a little faster than we thought too. So that was pretty good. But you got to be careful though sometimes, is that sometimes when labor takes less time, especially a lot less time than you were expecting, good managers will want to check into that. Make sure labor did a good job, because sometimes labor might not have done the whole job, or maybe didn't do the job to specifications or whatever. So when it says favorable, it's good, of course, but you want to check into it. Make sure it's really good. So the total variance is 192.50 favorable. So there you go, folks. So this is kind of a long video, and but I hope it helped. Doing these variances is actually kind of fun, I think. It's like figuring out a puzzle. So if you can set it up properly, you can usually figure out all the numbers. Sometimes you have to be a little bit of a detective to figure out the numbers, but it can be done. So until next time, check out accountingsuperstars.com. Hit the like button and the subscribe button. That way people like at YouTube know that you like these videos. And that way I'll know you like them. And till next time, over and out.